Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Off Dog TV broadcasting to you through this podcast live from Nairobi CBD. And in this podcast, we normally analyze shipping trends, maritime issues, port operations issues, logistics and supply chain issues, which encompasses transport systems, both rail, road, pipeline, sea, air. All these are channels of distributing cargo from the point of origin to the point of destination. Now, as the war in the Middle East takes the entire attention of the world, for the war towards control of the holy city of Jerusalem, it's not lost on some of us that we have been there before. We have seen it all before. Fortunately, we were born during the days of the Yom Kippur War, the 1967 Six-Day War. We have been there and witnessed the war in 1972-73 after the Munich massacre of the Israeli team. We've been there all along. And for us now, for those people who have lived through these ages, it's not something very strange that we are seeing what's happening in the Middle East. So, for a while now, it seems like the Ukraine-Russian war has been placed at the back burner. It seems like it's no longer taking the attention of the world. But all of this put together, how does it directly impact on us in this part of the world, thousands of kilometers away from the battle hotspots? This is very important because look at the Baltic Sea areas, look at the Persian Gulf, look at the Mediterranean Sea. As merchant vessels ply those trade routes, you'll also notice that the military naval vessels are also closing in those areas, and therefore the safety and security of the merchant vessels are likely to be compromised, and therefore entirely the shipping world will be affected. And the impact of all this will be felt more in the third world, who depends almost 100% on those trade routes to get their imports and export products. But now let's come back home on the issue of connectivity linkages that brings in through the port of Mombasa. Let me take you a little while back. In the early 1980s, KPA was still a very young organization created by the Act of Parliament of 1978. And the first leadership of the organization had very, very visionary leaders. They had visionary leaders like Jonathan Muturi, whose vision is felt up to today. Because since that time, the concepts of inland terminals, inland cargo terminals, were his brainchild. And remember, in 1984, that's the first inland cargo terminal, popularly known as KPA ICD, was established in 1984 jointly with Kenya Railways. And remember, in the maritime world, the concept for inland cargo terminals had not even been envisioned in those days. But the leadership of KPA came with the first inland cargo terminal as a hub for physical distribution, as a consolidation point for cargo. And through these inland terminals, a corridor for movement, for fluidity of movement, both into the port and from the port, was clearly established. I recall that most of the ports in Europe started developing inland cargo terminals much later in 2007, 2008. I visited some of those inland terminals. Some were still under construction. It only means that the visionary leaders in Kenya Ports Authority at that time had seen far ahead of time and established the first inland container depot or inland cargo terminal. After that, then there came the 1994 inland terminal at Eldoret, KPA inland, the Eldoret inland cargo terminal, popularly known as Eldoret ICD, and then came the KISUMU inland container depot, popularly known as KPA KISUMU ICD at KIBOS area. All this was generally to create linkages to the hinterland destinations, transit destinations, so that the port of Mombasa is well given relief from the possible threats of congestion. So we must, as we look back, then we do realize that subsequent administration at the port of Mombasa did not entirely follow up on those blueprints. And therefore, along the way, the ICD's inland terminals were discarded. Up to today, as we speak, the Eldoret ICD, which is directly linked to the main railway gauge line, has never been implemented. It has never been commissioned, and has been taken over by Moi University as becoming now part of the Moi University campus. KISUMU was opened up, started operations for a while, until the post-election violence uprooted most of the rails along the line. But even though that was the case, the line from Londiani to KISUMU was a much lower gauge, and therefore cargo had to move in short hauls from Londiani, also from Nakuru. But for the Eldoret ICD, it was straight on the main line with a shunting line of about 4 or 5 kilometers, shunting to the inland cargo terminal, and then connects directly all the way to Malaba, Busia, either by road or by the rail system that goes all the way to Jinja and Kampala. Now, these inland cargo terminals was for the future, and the future is now. But still, they've been abandoned. And that's why in my last video, I called upon the county government of KISUMU to critically and very urgently look at taking over of the KPA ICD. It's very strategically located along KIBOS area with a shunting line, meter gauge shunting line from the ICD to the port of KISUMU. The KIBOS ICD has got a stacking capacity. The yard stacking capacity can stack up to about 1,000 containers, 1,000 TEUs, if we stack them at 4 high. And then it has a warehouse. There is a warehouse that can accommodate up to 25,000 tons of bagged cargo. Previously, this place was very busy for the northern Tanzania season for cotton seed cakes that were going for export through the port of Mombasa. It has become moribund since the 2007-2008 post-election violence. But now, as the government embarks on a program for revamping the meter gauge railway, extending the Naivasha standard gauge all the way to KISUMU, then it provides the best advantage for the county government of KISUMU to revive the KISUMU Inland Container Depot at KIBOS, precisely for cargo consolidation, for stripping of containers that will go on loose, on closed wagon bogies, shunting all the way to the port and roll over into MV1, MV Uhuru 1 or MV Uhuru 2. Likewise, the KISUMU Inland Container Port would play the most critical role for the return of empty containers back to the port of Mombasa, because all containers crossing the borders through the Great Lakes region, and the empty containers returning back to the port of Mombasa would be consolidated or stockpiled at the Kisumu ICD and waiting for nomination at the port of Mombasa for the vessels that are going to pick them up and redirect to the port, instead of keeping them in the port and therefore taking up space in the port. So Kisumu is very strategic in terms of the inland cargo terminal. And remember, the Great Lakes region has got a population jointly of about 200 million. This is a very, very big market, a market that can capture most of the trade that comes through the port of Mombasa, goes by road, comes by rail, all the way to Kisumu and distributed through the lake transport system. Now, if you combine the port operations and the KIBOS ICD, then you have a complete picture of the entire port of Mombasa being transformed right at the port of Kisumu, because the terminal at KIBOS is the container terminal with a warehouse. The Kisumu port has got a very big warehouse as well that can also accommodate about 25,000 tons of bagged cargo. The Kisumu port has also got a free yard, an empty yard next to the warehouse that can just be developed at very low cost into another container yard, so that it can now complement on the inland container depot at Kisumu KIBOS area. So it is important that this kind of natural resource, and already government has already developed the infrastructure. It's now upon the county government of Kisumu to rise to the occasion, roll up their sleeves, look at the possibilities, look at the challenges, summon all the expertise that's available, so that this can be turned into a reality. Now, logistics through Kisumu and through the lake, like I said earlier in my last video, and now that the second vessel has now gone to sail, it's now clear that a lot of marketing has to be done, so that cargo do not just come by road all the way from the Great Lakes region, but through the port of Kisumu, connect from the port direct to the port of Mombasa for shipment. Likewise, there's a road system that links Kisumu to Hispania. Hispania connects to the northern Tanzania region, which is very, very rich in seasons of harvest and exports. The northern Tanzania region is quite far a distance from that area to the port of Dar es Salaam. Over 300 miles far than than the distance from the port of Kisumu to the port of Mombasa. And therefore, it's the biggest advantage. It's cost effective to move that cargo from northern Tanzania region through the port of Kisumu, through the road from through Hispania, and then nominate the same cargo at KIBOS ICD, for instance, or from the port, there's a rail system, and connect all the way to the port of Mombasa. That way alone does not require rocket science for us to start establishing some of this implementation program for the port of Kisumu and the KPA Inland Cargo Terminal, or KIBOS ICD. Therefore, it's upon the county government and the KPA management, because it does not really make sense for KPA ICD Kisumu to remain idle. It's completely idle. This is a waste of resources. Yeah, and yet the greatest opportunities are there. Even before the rail linkage systems have been put in place, now that the government is embarking on that kind of program, still those facilities can be used on connectivity there through the road network system. Yeah, and then the consolidation of cargo can be done even now as you speak. There is also the possibility of now turning that facility as an empty depot. Yeah, empty depot requires small ancillary services. For instance, services for cleaning of containers, stacking of the containers, zero rate storage of empties in that depot and make a little money on lift off. Yeah, and because of the volumes, that depot can easily break even. Yeah, and also provide the kind of services that is required by the shipping lines. And the shipping lines would prefer where their cargo, their empty container is well taken care of at nominal costs. Yeah, before they can now take it on its return leg back to the port of Mombasa for shipment. So in this analysis, it is quite clear that we must now push for all the parties involved to wake up and push the county of Kisumu to go and do what is necessary, not only for us now, also for the generations to come. I've seen a list of these organizations to be privatized by the State Privatization Authority, and I've seen the Eldoret KPA Eldoret ICD is in the list for privatization. Now, we should make sure that in this list, the Kisumu ICD does not fall into this list, so that the people of Kisumu, the people of Nyanza are deprived of such a monumental natural resource that the government has already established, and it only needs to be picked up and commissioned, and work will start there. Remember, Kisumu Port is also closely connected to the western region, yeah, Kakamega all the way to Busia. This connectivity is big. The market in that area is big in terms of logistics and supply chain. Yeah, the Kericho Nandi area is also a big market for linkages. Look at the Kisii Kuria areas. All this, all the way to Migori, all the way to Hispania in northern Tanzania. All this has got direct linkages. The road network systems are working perfectly well. And therefore, we can do what we call in transshipment a hub and spoke kind of model for transshipment. But for this transit, we can do the hub and spoke as the Kisumu port becoming the hub, and the linkages and the door-to-door services and distribution becomes the spoke that also defines the kind of transit model that Kisumu port would aptly be able to be employed for the northern corridor to be very, very effective, very fluid, and less cost effective. Please subscribe for this channel. We really need this channel to grow, and also make some comments at the below section so that we are able to analyze your comments and see where we can build up on and help each other, and see how we can educate each other, and see how we can help, especially in our areas of the Kisumu port and the Kisumu Inland Container Depot at KIBOS. Press on the notification button so that we will get notified real time every time we roll out a new video, and also share this video so that we can reach a wider audience. And the audience will be able now to bring in more membership into our channel for the analysis that we do on a daily basis. Off-dock services is also an entrepreneurship that also deals with shipping, ship contracting. It deals also with warehousing, transport systems, and also port operations. Thank you very much, and let's meet again in the next video. Thank you.